us. It is a totally different world. Everything is completely different. It's very difficult to remember how horrible and bigoted and difficult and it was a wretched place compared with now.
That's a very smart answer, because of course what I was hoping you'd say is that you felt that you were still outsiders totally, and then I would be able to say, well, you've shown at Tate Modern, you've shown at major museums in the world, you've represented Britain at the Venice Biennale, but you say you haven't changed, the world has changed and you've now become part of that extended art world.
We were on the outside of the periphery of the art world, and we stayed there, but the art world has moved around to make us more central. But we're still outsiders for many people, for many museums, for many areas of the media. We're still there.
But we want to be outsiders. We want to be alone. We don't want to out to see people. It's very important to us. We don't want it. We like to be locked up in Fournier Street. We like it. That's very important. Because we realize we learn to live with ourselves. At the beginning, we wanted friends. We wanted to be loved. And after we realized we don't need to be loved.
But you do a wonderful job of hiding that, because when you're out with installing museum exhibitions, you talk to everyone who comes to talk to you. You never refuse a photograph or an autograph. You do all the press. Is that part of the job of being living sculptures, of getting the work out there then?
You know, we feel that it's very necessary to be gentle in that way, because access to contemporary art shows, living artists, is very, very rare. It's not like football or murder that happens every day and every weekend, or even jazz, which is twice a year festival in every damn silly city. Yeah? To see an exhibition of ours in Linz took 40 years. Yeah? There probably will never be another one. Even in London, we had 1, 2, or 3 public shows. It'll be years before we have another one. Many, many people will be dead, and there'll be young people who never saw the last show before we have the next show. We're very conscious that it's difficult for people to see modern art by living art. It's quite different to see modern art by living artists than just modern art. It's a different experience.
I mean, we want a public. That's very important. And we fight for that, because there is nothing else. No? If you do an art show, like maybe for you, gallery in London, no? And you do 30 or 40 pictures, no? Maybe you sell 10 or 20, and after they disappear forever, nobody will see one of these pictures again. That's why we are doing that. We have a new strategy for making art now. We don't do 10 pieces. We do 300 artworks or 150 artworks that we can, what you call, disperse in different places. We can have private gallery shows, we can have museum shows at the same time, we can have catalog at the same time. So it really becomes what you call a more visionary idea of art.
You're always joins in all the other things like football and politics and the murderers. It's accessible around the world.
I love your grouping. You keep saying football, politics, and murder. I mean, I think people are going to go away.
It's three very important.
The 3 least pleasant things in the world for us. We have nothing against footballers, on the other hand.
You always. I mean, one of the. I think the characteristics of every work every picture you've made, not the postcard pieces, is that images of the two of you are there. People then wonder whether one can perceive your work as a form of self-portraiture. How do you respond to that?
We think that's very simple, that we are speaking to the people. Every artist and every writer was like that, really. We just took it one stage further. You don't say to a person when you're in a museum, come and look at this bit of grass in a tree in this picture. You say, look at this fantastic Van Gogh, because you know it's Van Gogh speaking to from the grave. If you say to anybody on the street, Charles Dickens, even if they've never read a book, something comes into their head. That's the force of culture. So it's like our signature in a way, being in the picture.
Creating an image.
Us and the viewer, the relationship between.
We speaking to the viewer, creating a very simple image. Even that's why our suits are very important. It simplifies everything, and what do you call it is very focused.
How do the suits simplify it? You mean it's like a uniform? You don't have to think about it, and it's immediately identifiable as Gilbert and George. This is what you wear.
First of all, it saves time, because we don't have to think about fashion. We don't have to, like our city friends, they have to throw their suits out every 2 years because of the wrong fit, the wrong cut. And we never wanted to be like the cliche of the scruffy artist with the weird beard and the sandals spattered with paint. We always wanted to be the artist that we said the mother wouldn't be ashamed of. It didn't work out exactly like that, I'm afraid. It's also very good because you can always get a table in a restaurant and you're never searched at airports.
But we managed to arrange for a very clean, what they call, environment, no? Like our house, we never cook, no? We don't go to galleries, and so we are simplifying. No music in the house ever, no alcohol in the house ever, except when we have friends who be going out, and so it's a very simple life, very concentrated life. No? We don't have to. We never answer the phone.
No, that is true. I can verify that. Yes.
It's very simple. We need acres and acres of emptiness in front of us before we can begin to make a group of pictures. If our life is cluttered, then we cannot even begin to make those pictures. We need silence, emptiness, dead-headed, zonked, and then we can create something.
And be alone. That's very important.
I've never asked you this question publicly. You can slap me or not answer it if you want.
Slap you first.
Slap me first, yes.
You should be so lucky.
Would you describe, what is the essence of your relationship then? Creative, personal, or whatever. Is it based on love, whatever that means? I mean, is and that's a creative thing?
It's the world's greatest force. That's where people say, I saw a film last week, I'd love you to see it. Or I'd love you to read this book I've just finished. It's the driving force. When mankind loved the idea of flying enough, they managed to get the aeroplane. Yeah?
Maybe we still want to reaching for paradise.
No, love is very important. Even I think our pictures are all connected with love as well as everything else. Yeah?
It's very clear, hearing you in person, I'm sure everyone will be getting this, is that there's a kind of gentleness in a way, and there's obviously a humour and a sharpness, but your pictures are tough. I mean, Michael Bracewell said of the Jack Freak pictures that he thinks they're probably the most violent pictures you've ever made. Are you angry, or is anger relevant at all to what you're trying to express?
Of course.
In what way?
That doesn't mean to say that we make pictures that would alienate or offend people. We still want to get away with it. We want to deal with all of the difficult subjects and not send people running out of the museum or gallery or getting the police in. It's like the lady friend of ours who took her mother to the Tate Modern exhibition in the hope that the mother would be shocked or offended by something. So they went through the exhibition. When they came out, the mother said, well, I'm not entirely sure of every single one of their pictures, dear, but they do dress very nicely. So we'd got away with it, you see.
What about the other story? It's more interesting.
Which one?
Baby asking.
Oh, again, it's famous. One of the invigilators at the Tate Modern told us a wonderful story. He was in one of the galleries of our retrospective, and there was a nice middle-class lady, probably from Hampstead or Kensington, with her 3 small children, and they were standing in front of one of our rather explicit diagrammatic pictures called Sperm Eaters. And one of the children, they both looked for a long time, then one of the children said, can you do that, mummy? And being a very nice, sensible, educated lady, she replied, sometimes, darling. If we all had mothers like that, eh?
I think this accusation has died down, but various feminist art historians pointed out that there were no women in your pictures. How do you respond to that now in 2011?
Exhausted by that. Quite exhausted, because I thought every artist can do whatever he wants, not in some way.
And also because we started as artists being in the picture, and we continued that with other people, it just became people of our own sex. Eh? We felt that we were also doing pictures more especially for women than the other artists, because the sex that generally, majority for the female is the male. Yeah? People,
yes,
women normally had to look at female nudes in every exhibition.
And we felt anyway, for the last 300 or 400 years, if you go to a museum, you see mostly naked ladies. That's all about that. And we feel very much because it's simply because the man had the checkbook. No? That's why. If the woman would have had a checkbook, they probably would have bought full of naked men.
No, the history of art would have been different. Yeah?
Yes.
We know that if a pair of portraits of a 19th century couple, two frames, and a portrait of a lady with a vase of flowers on the table beside her, goes to auction, that will be 3,000, 3,500. Then the one of her husband in military costume fetches nothing. Nobody wants a portrait of a man in a khaki uniform with a gun. So we're trying to redress the balance in some way.
Absolutely.
And I think it's very good. They should be lucky that we are doing that. No? For the first time, even it's very interesting because men are the ones who are terrified of naked men. No? Even when we do the big shows, no, what they call the museum's director, they are terrified that we have that they could call them like homosexual art, and they're totally terrified by that. Women are not by that. That's quite interesting.
It is. I like that answer. Even though you said you were exhausted, you rose to that one pretty well. And I suppose, in a sense, we could say that you're feminist artists of the sort.
We are feminists in that the feminists say that you should take the adult books from the top shelf in the newsagents, should pull them down, because they don't want the image of the woman for men. So we're the right artists.
Sure, we are probably women with dicks. Yeah.
You've mentioned religion, and you've said that there was a time when you strongly decided to take a stance against it. Do you still feel strongly against organised religion?
More and more, absolutely. Ban religion, that's our slogan. Oh, yes.
Religion became more powerful, so our objection to it strengthens as well. Yeah.
Even
as we speak at the moment, people are committing suicide, murdering, assassinating, executing people in the name of religion, in countries that many of you have been on holidays, I'm sure. It's a great shame, and we should all come to terms with that.
Even we became aware of that like 10 or 15 years ago, because before that religion didn't mean too much, we just ignored it in some way. But then through Islam, they became again very, very powerful. All the newspapers in London, they only talk about religion day and night. And you realize, like even we are in Fournier Street. On one end we have the what they call the mosque, and the other end we have the Anglican church. So non-stop you are confronted by religion, non-stop. And they accuse you all the time to be secular, no? That what they call the secularists are very aggressive, they want to say.
Which is totally unfair, because the religious people have a total supremacy. They have headquarters in every village. Yeah?
Churches
they have the police on this side, they have the government on this side.
So it's a battle.
Yeah, we think it would be better if religion came under the same legal umbrella as all of us. That would be one start, so that the Trades Description Act would apply to them. Yeah, so a marmalade company cannot say that eat this marmalade and you'll go to heaven. I mean, it's a nonsense. They lie. Yeah?
But how do you feel that the history of art has been dominated by religious imagery? I mean, Western art...
Yeah, it's not the history of art, it's the history of religion. All of the national galleries should take the religious pictures out and put them in a different department, like Americans put sporting pictures in a different department.
It's propaganda for the church, that's what it is. No? Only the 18th century liberates themselves from the propaganda from the church.
So you don't feel connected to that tradition where some of the greatest artists have produced what is broadly recognised, even by secularists, as amongst the greatest achievements in Western art that may be religious?
They just did what they were told. They weren't crazy artists like us saying, what do we want to say to the world today?
They
just did yet another Madonna with the baby. Yeah?
So art's one of the ways that you make this view clear, and the Son of a God pictures are amongst your most confrontational in that respect?
Yes.
There are some. I mean, we have full of subjects that we are circling around that, no?
And are there subjects, or have there been pictures that you've started to make where you have realised that the consequences may be extreme in terms of legal, moral, physical reaction to it, or have you never self-censored?
We never asked that question before doing it. No?
I think we instinctively know where to draw the line. We don't want to be murdered. Yeah, it's very simple. And strangely, we also have to be fair to say that we also have support from religious groups, from the clergy. We went to see the beautiful abbey designed by our favourite 19th century architect Pugin in Ramsgate on the south coast. And the door was locked, there was nobody inside, and a passerby said, if you knock at the monastery across the road, they'll give you a tour of the abbey. So we knocked at the monastery door. After a long pause, a very elegant, elderly, beautifully dressed monk appeared at the door, and we asked him if we could see the church. He said, yes, of course, if you come back at 2:30, I'll arrange for one of our curates to show. Oh dear, you're the artist.